Pat, how's it going? Good to see you.
Hey, buddy, I'm doing well. Please forgive me, and to everybody else who's out there, forgive me for being so late. Uh, I had to drive to a new location because the internet went down about 15 minutes before this went off, and so I had to drive to a new location to get internet, and I apologize.
No worries, as they say, better late than never. But we are excited to have you on here today and appreciate you taking the time both to come and chat with the community, but also to find a new access point for internet to be able to chat with us today. We were on a call prior to this, and in the middle, there was a little bit of a snafu with your internet situation, and we went into emergency mode to try to figure it out because we know that you want to be here talking to the Monte community, and I know that they're very excited to see you here today too.
Yeah, super excited. Thank you all. Please forgive the lack of practical charity as we manage Wi-Fi. Good to be with all of you. And JP, we're super excited about what we're doing here together, and maybe we can have a little bit of a conversation. My real goal is to talk about kind of who is Inveniam, what are our goals, what are the main themes of what we're doing, kind of, one, two, and three, and how do these fit together, and how does Mantra fit into Inveniam strategic plans, right? And what we want to do, and then let anybody and everybody ask any question, because we want to make the entire Mantra family part of our team.
Absolutely, I think that's a great plan. Let's really dig into that because I think that's really the crux of this conversation. We had a call or a community connect. I believe it was about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, something like that, where we talked about the deal that we just did. We had John Powley from Dokugami and the deal that you guys and the announcement you guys had with him, which was pretty exciting about DGML. And I think that is a good segue to kind of talk about what are some of these, there's so many different moving pieces with Inveniam and a lot of different partnerships and really cool announcements and a lot of interesting technology. How is it all fitting together, and what's the story look like going forward?
Yeah, first off, Inveniam, we're just really focused on the systematic trading of private market assets. And this is who we've been for the last 10 years now, really understanding how can we facilitate private market assets trading digitally to expand dramatically how people store value and transfer value on a giant piece of the global economy, $600 trillion of the global economy that doesn't touch the traditional Wall Street function that exists. And so not only expanding how people save money, meaning what they're going to save money in, but then how they transfer that back and forth. And we think that sitting on blockchain, transforming real world assets, and where we're focused, not necessarily the real world assets like treasuries and tokenized stocks, which are fantastic, but those have data that sits in a centralized data repository, right? In an Edgar database, there's a ton of data feeds on how a treasury is trading, so there's no question about that asset. What we're doing is we're focused on these private market assets, so real estate, private equity, infrastructure, private credit. And as we look at all these assets that live in there, they are data rich and low frequency trading, right? And the key is not do we understand what is the asset, what is the capital stack, what's the legal considerations. All those need to be understood. But the reality is we need to understand the state of those assets, right? And as we understand the state of those assets, we are literally moving from a structured centralized database. There's three types of data in the world, right? Structured centralized databases, semi-structured, and so Amazon, Microsoft, the big players, Google, GCP, right? Think about the big players. Then you have these semi-structured data solutions, Databricks and Snowflakes. In Inveniam, we are the third piece of that data stool, right? We are unstructured document-based data. And what we're doing is giving people the ability to manage unstructured document-based data and make it available for machines to understand it in context with context, with proof of origin, process, and state of data. And what we're doing is giving people the ability to have an overlay over all of this data and deliver it on demand and surveil those assets, meaning think real estate, infrastructure, private credit, private equity, and look for change of state in this data as new documents, new appraisals, new leases, new amendments, new credit agreements, new compliance certificates come in. Every day we're looking, is there a change of state of data? And if there is, what do we update? And we're automatically surveilling that. And so all of this is creating a mechanism for machines to understand documents, right? You get lawyers to help us as we create legal agreements. And what we're doing is we're understanding the cap stack. We're understanding the structure of the ownership of this building. We want to buy and sell. And then we have to monitor that. And if we want to buy that building, we hire a team. The seller hires a team. They put together a book. And our data and our knowledge is perfected the moment we make a purchase. We've done all the due diligence, 3, 6, 9 months of due diligence. The seller put together a book, made sure everything was up to date. It took their seller's team 6 months to put it together. And at that moment at closing, we have perfected knowledge on that asset, right? But then that data starts to get stale. Do you know what I mean? And we try to put it up to date, but there's no systems in place. So Inveniam created these systems to manage the data operations, right? So data operations management is what we do for all of these various different data sources that are evidence of the maintenance and the entropy or improvement of an asset, right? Entropy falls apart, improvement gets better, right? And so as we're managing these things, we begin to understand it. So the first thing we're doing is we're, again, in the client's own environment, because private market asset owners, they want to control their data, right? This is the Tim Berners-Lee vision. I index the data, meaning I name it.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the clients? Because there's some really big name clients in some of the industries that they're looking at, and also maybe just a little bit around the scale. Because I think Inveniam's scale of assets that it surveils is massive. I mean, we're not talking crypto numbers. We're talking institutional numbers here, and I think that's something the community would really want to know about.
Yeah. So
it's hard to get you off your rhythm a little bit, but I think that's it.
The data game maybe was getting less excited. I was coming to the punchline. But yeah, absolutely. So for everybody who's watching, that was JP going, stop talking about this, talk about something else. I'll get back to the thing I was talking about in a minute, and that's fair enough. So we do have a large number of clients who are some, big banks. We've been through Critical Architectural Review Board. We've been through cybersecurity review boards of 6 of the 10 largest banks in the world, and those are not easy things to get through. Sometimes those are multi-year processes where they're looking at using our tools in their critical architecture and infrastructure to literally process. I think it's 6 of the top 20. I think that stat I gave you was wrong. Not 6 of the top 10, 6 of the top 20 banks. And so we have a number of large banks. We've talked about this. We have every loan funded by a derivative in North America by one of the top 3 Japanese banks. Every one of those loans live natively in our system. We have a number of sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East that we're surveilling their assets. And so we've onboarded, well over $200 billion of assets onto our platform since the beginning. We're surveilling these assets, sometimes on a daily, sometimes on a weekly, sometimes on a monthly, sometimes on a quarterly basis, looking for change of state of data, because that data frequency doesn't happen a lot. And this is everything from marinas and ports to office buildings to private equity to we got $6 billion of private credit, and what we're doing is we're monitoring the compliance certificates on the underlying collateral and the underlying borrowers, looking for change of state of data in that collateral. And that private credit is a big growth area for us. We've been building on those tools for quite some time. We're going to the market with them. But anyway, these are our clients, and what we're doing is we're managing that data, understanding this, that information, index, vector embed, what's in it, and then now with DGML, we're going to open source this language DGML so we can also semantically chunk it. And we're doing this and we're creating this and giving the language away for these agents to have a mechanism to interact with the data in a document when it meets a document in the wild natively and it doesn't know how to interact with them. And it doesn't know how to interact with them because it doesn't know what the words mean. And what I mean by that is in the computer language, that's called in the computer world, that's called the ontology, right? What do these words mean? And when we speak to each other, we use words differently with different groups. And in legal documents, they use different words different ways. And so Inveniam has an enterprise solution that sits on top of it, but we are working with John Powley to create document graph markup language and release that into the wild. Inveniam IO is going to sit on top of that, and we're going to anchor these results as agents interact with data, come to know it, and then mark it. Now, JP, I'm gonna pause for a minute because when I moved for better internet, I moved to the outside in Florida in the month of July. So not only my glass is fogging, but I'm sweating like a madman. So forgive me for those who are watching this. But you begin to understand kind of what we're doing. So in Inveniam, we want to be the third stool of the data piece, unstructured document level data where we can pull the most valuable information in the world, anchor not only proof of origin of the data on chain, proof of process, who's improved it, proof of state, I have the most recent version, all that's going to be anchored on chain. But then with DGML, we semantically chunk what's in the document, and each chunk is anchored on chain, and that legal document can become a registry that is related to supporting multiple trades as we begin to trade the capital stack of buildings that then allow us to understand the value of private REITs, larger public REITs, ports, as they get tens of thousands of documents every day as containers are loaded off, and the invoices, they're either PDFs, they're pictures of a document, or they're an electronic document. But even when they're an electronic document, coming to understand that so that a machine can interface with it natively, man, that is the nut that Inveniam has been working 10 years to crack. And now that we've cracked it, we become, and on the data side, have the ability to extract the value from that, not just sell it to technology buyers, which we will. We brought in this superstar, Alan Yates, who ran partnerships for Microsoft. He's going to run that for us as we productize and sell to market as we go with an enterprise solution. Think like Red Hat over our own open source language. Think like Linux, right? So we're open sourcing this. We've got an enterprise solution. But then what we're doing is we're really not just selling to technology buyer, we're selling to private market asset participants where we're helping them extract the data from the documents and we share in that value. Does that make sense? We're doing price discovery on private market assets. Average price discount 13% across private market assets when they sell on a secondary basis. And we want to cut that discount down because we're perfecting the information, we're giving price discovery. And that is a really cool solution where we're going to start selling to the technology buyers, but we're also helping private market participants extract value by participating, not just in selling them a technology tool, but sharing in the delivery of that value to them as they price that asset. And that gets into the markets business with Mantra, where you're going to help us monetize that at scale at various different venues. That's the vision of what we want to do. And I'm sorry, I finished what I had started. Sorry that you wanted to get, take it to maybe a little bit more organic of a conversation. And I apologize if I was too focused on that.
No worries at all. I think it's good to hear the full vision. I think we've already seen some people putting it together a little bit in the comments, and they can start understanding just the scale of what this will bring on chain. And one, I think easy kind of image that you can put into your head is just the scale of what Inveniam IO does today in terms of transactions on chain from a documents perspective. But then once you add DGML and the ability to semantically chunk documents, the amount of transactions that's going to have added on chain. And obviously then, that's paid for in gas with Mantra USD, is creating transactions, is creating revenue for the chain, is creating fees for the stakers. All these things are net beneficial to the ecosystem. And again, for maybe just one example, I'm not going to go too deep into the use case because it's an exciting one. We want to share it in full breadth for everyone. But just one particular use case, it's around legal usage. And in order to put the entirety of the documents that were needed on chain, it would cost roughly about 100,000 US dollars. That's just to have them there in the existing state. So that actually is $100,000 worth of transaction revenue that will be paid back to stakers and via MonTrustD just from one particular use case, just to get it started. That's the tip of the iceberg, and the scale of this thing is absolutely massive. So I think that's a really good, easy understanding of how this is going to drive transactions and flow and usage on chain, which is truly an important factor for us.
But JP, that is literally the very tip of the iceberg.
100%.
Now we're talking about agents that need to surveil those from the particular perspective of the person who is searching. So I want you to think about search, but intelligent search, where you are going in and saying, I want to look and understand the state of this asset. I want to understand the state of my portfolio. I want to understand the underlying asset composition of this fund that I'm considering buying or selling or participating in, or if somebody's going to lend against an asset, and they're going to, they used to give those documents to an individual. Now they're giving it to an individual who's immediately deploying an agent, and that agent needs to not only surveil that, it needs to ratify the information. This is the right information, and it needs to prove the outcome to the person who engaged that agent. And just like there's a UBO, ultimate beneficial owner of a company, there's going to be, and there is, ultimate beneficial owners of an agent, and the immediate user of an agent, which is very different, who works for the UBO, right? And when we think about liability, for agents working in the markets, this is enormously important. And this is a governance function that Inveniam has. And this governance function for agents, as governments are searching documents, then they want to prove, I got this information from this document. I can prove it's the most recent version. Here's the previous versions. Let me put an anchor on chain to prove that. And then here's who I gave it to. They did this with it. That produced this answer, and I'm giving it to them. Now, the person they're giving it to, whoever it is, the tax authority, their accountants, their lender, their borrower, whoever it is, they're going to have an agent that's going to validate each one of those. And for each one of those, they're going to drop a chain. So what you see is an exponential growth in data, just like you see an exponential growth in data when all of a sudden you start putting all these cameras in Teslas, right? And a Tesla that's constantly driving, especially those that aren't self-driving, they are generating a level of data that we've never seen before in our lives. Do you know what I mean? And that data sits there, and unprocessed, it's useless, but processed, suddenly we're creating all sorts of insight and improvement in self-driving, that we see in Tesla that is exponential. Well, we're going to see that same thing in private markets. And what we're doing is giving the ability for this artificial intelligence to prove where it got it, what happened to it, and that it has the right version thereof. And then it can deliver that to the end user or to another agent who can have a mechanism of validation along the way. And this is true in the law. This is true in taxation. This is true in markets, in price discovery, in servicing of this asset. We're doing a project right now with an entity where we're literally deploying the ability to use AI across large portfolios of real estate to say, what is the most useful dollar I can spend for optimization on energy, right? So I have this budget across all my portfolio. Where can I get the greatest bang for the buck in creating optimization on energy utilization and optimization, right? And they upgrade lights to LED, or they, whether it's water cooling or whatever the thing that they want to worry about. They have an optimization. They literally would have hired teams of consultants to do that in the past, and now AI is doing it for real time. But none of that's possible without the ability for the machines to understand what's in the documents with context. We pull all that all the way to Mantra. We're anchoring things on chain, but then also we're creating the ability to create new forms of financial products that we're going to be able to trade on your perps market that you guys just created, which is one of the reasons we were super interested, because of all the work you were doing in the perps area with MF markets, et cetera, which we think is going to explode. That perps are going to eat the world. They're literally going to eat the world.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we've seen with the MF Markets platform that we developed, and just for everyone's information, now it is live in Google and the Apple Store, and we also have a web app, which I don't believe has been released to the public just yet, but it will in the next day or so, if not early next week at the absolute latest. So you can actually log into the MF Markets and seamlessly connect between your computer and your web app to easily trade on either device. And one of the things that we're seeing from the asset side of things in that space is there's clearly, at least in the hyperliquid ecosystem, which is what MF Markets is built on, because they just have the best access to liquidity and whatnot. But there's been a dominance of public asset markets by a product called Trade XYZ, which is a really cool platform and product, but they're truly focused on those public markets. We're kind of saying that we're going to be going a little bit of a different route here with the Inveniam focus on private market assets. Maybe just talking a little bit about the differences in scale. Obviously, they're very big markets, both of them, but I think it's really important that the community understands why private markets are so exciting.
And why they're so exciting to us and to you, right? Particularly
to us, to you, to perps, to anything. Yeah, I mean, I think private markets are huge, and it's a much bigger obstacle to participate in public markets, be primarily around data, the data delivery and the constant data delivery that needed to be there to participate in the public markets, and the audit of that data, because public markets exist and trade on one thing and one thing only: trust, right? I think of this great quote. This is one of my favorite quotes. JP Morgan, right? When he stopped the run, I think, and forgive me, somebody check this for me, but I think it was the run of 1896. And he did it where he put all of his wealth in to the market to stop the run. And somebody's going to correct me and give me the right date, but let's call it late 1890. Sorry. And then he literally stopped the run on all the U.S. companies that had gone public, and then the whole market turned around and there was a run up, right? And what he did is he effectively put all of his wealth at risk, but he effectively turned the bottom of the market on this run, which meant he bought in at the bottom and he killed it, right? Like, and so years later, there's a congressional hearing where they are they're interrogating him, saying, "Did you cause the run in order to profit?" Right? Because after the fact, everybody comes in and second guesses him, right? And this is in this great biography called Morgan, and it's the opening quote of like the 6th paragraph chapter. It's fabulous. It's been a while since I read it, maybe 10 years ago, and they said everybody should read it. Great book. And they said, do you not in fact base all lending decisions at JP Morgan on credit and collateral? He said, no, credit and collateral means nothing. I could have all the bonds in Christendom, but if I did not trust the man, I would not lend him a red cent. Public markets trade on trust. And if there's an erosion of trust, Enron goes to zero. Arthur Andersen, you can't trust them to mark your books anymore. It goes to zero. Somebody doesn't trust your information, it goes to zero. And what we're doing is we're creating the mechanism, which is the barrier, right? And every time you climb a step of greater disclosure and transparency, what you do is you have more efficiency in the market for price discovery in your asset. The two same assets, one trading publicly, one trading privately. The one trading privately trades at a discount. Why does it trade at a discount? Because the data is not perfected, right? And in kind of global allocators worlds, they say that there's a 500 to 700 basis point discount on average between public and private markets, and that's of the best private markets,
right? Now, the worst of the private markets, even though it might be a great asset that you love owning and collecting the cash from, but you can't get a loan from it, you can't borrow from it, you can't trade from it because nobody understands the data, and you're the only one who knows all the data of where the leaks are, what you built it with, etc. But the better the documentation is, the more you climb the steps where you get to the most efficient market in the world, which is the public. And what we're doing is we're closing that data asymmetry gap. And it used to be the way you accessed that is you gave it to a guy. So we got somebody like JP who runs a fund. He's got 3 billion or 5 billion or 30 billion in the fund, and you give it to him because he knows that market. And because you don't have access to the information he does, he gets paid 2 and 20. Does that make sense? And what we're doing is closing the gap so that we allow private markets to gain access. And as we do so, we make it more efficient. You can trade it, you can lend against it, you can do all these things. But as you also digitize it and we broaden the scope of that market, we can create correlations to other like assets around the world. And once they're big enough pools, we can all of a sudden start to see analogs, right? And we're not looking for, did another building trade like that in Topeka, Kansas, if that's where I am, or in Wichita, or in Yakima, Washington, or in upstate New York, right? Or Kuala Lumpur. You're looking at globally, how do these assets trade? Does that make sense? And you know, if you've got student housing in Fargo, North Dakota, next to, North Dakota State University, those things traded at 12 to a 14 cap. You have you have student housing next to Columbia in New York, it trades at a 2 cap. Why? Is the cash flow any better? No, the cash flow is exactly the same. It's just the amount of money that wants to go into New York City and Manhattan is so much greater than the amount of money that wants to go into Fargo. Now, a rational investor who has perfected information, we're going to see a symmetry as the 2 cap goes to a 5-6 cap, and that 12 cap, 14 cap goes to a 6 cap, because all of a sudden student housing is going to work. Now, if I have 3,000 student housing units or 5,000, geography matters less as long as the university near them is excellent, right? And what we're doing is we're perfecting asymmetry, broadening the scope, doing large data set pattern recognition, that we can start to bring these assets digitally on chain. JP, I think I'm talking too much. Sorry about that, brother.
No, it's good. No, absolutely, it's perfect. I think this is critical that we kind of really paint the picture of how all these things are coming together at its fundamental level. But maybe just to bring it back to some more tactical things, and I already see a lot of questions, so I do want to give the community enough time. One particular initiative or campaign that we've jointly launched last week was the early access campaign to Inveniam. And people are asking about tokenomics. They're asking, when more details, et cetera, et cetera. So just want to share a few things first. Number one, there's 6 days left to contribute. We've had over 5 million contribute so far, and I've heard of many, many millions that have been unstaked in order to participate and are actively waiting to contribute in the next coming days, which is great. Over 150 people have individually contributed, which is also good. People are asking for tokenomics, and Pat, I believe we were saying that this is coming roughly towards the end of July or maybe middle of July. I can't remember exactly. It's being worked on, so frankly speaking, we don't even know the final answer to that yet. But as more information comes, if there will be future vaults and future campaigns, which I think maybe you can talk to a little bit, the bonus or the price on the mantra will likely be less risk, less reward. Is that the kind of the right way that they should be thinking about this?
We're definitely going to have more vaults where we're not only doing this because we want this to be a mechanism by the mantra community. We have already made the bet. We are buying mantra, right? Like, we made an investment because we liked it. We thought that the market was underpricing the amazing work and the amazing tech that JP and his team had done. So we went and we bought the equity, and we said, okay, we're doing this. So we're coming together and we're closing that deal in days, right? Literally, I think like 2 days.
Literally in days. Yeah, like literally in days.
Let's not state the number of days. In days, we're closing, right? Lawyers are involved. It'll take longer. So we're going to close this in days, and we want a mechanism for the community to participate, and we want to embrace that community as much as humanly possible. We want the community to participate, feel that they're valued, and we're going to be unlocking this. We're going to have a couple more vaults, and as we have these additional vaults, I do think the discounts will be less. We'll be expanding what and who we take into those vaults, meaning stable coins will be involved, allowed, et cetera. And we're going to do this leading all the way up to our TGE event, right? And so the tokenomics will be published later this month. We want to create what is an extremely competitive, best-in-class solution set that allows people to stake and deploy capital individually and at scale. So institutional and retail will be able to invest side by side directly with one another with the same economics. We want to facilitate this with total transparency. We incubated and we're on the board of this great company called Ocean.xyz, which is a Bitcoin mining software that we own a big chunk of. And the reasons we created it is not because there weren't other mining softwares. It's because they were centralized and there was not innovation happening, and we thought there was money being left on the table. Those clients, they get a 3 to 5% pickup as they move there because there's better operations. We want to be best in class, where there is 100% the most efficient utilization of capital for institutional and retail clients to commingle their assets side by side and participate in the same types of trades. And this is what we want to make happen. And we think DeFi is exactly the right structure. We think Mantra and what you've built are key components that we're going to use in this end-to-end solution as we partner with market makers, market operators, and dive deeply into a number of these different verticals. But yeah, there'll be more vaults coming before the TGE. But we do want to have this kind of first one as a special one that is intended purely and only for the Mantra community so they can participate alongside of us. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Pat. So a few people I saw asking about what is like Inveniam vaults. So just to be clear, the mechanism that people are contributing and Mantra into this early access campaign is called a boring vault, right? So you're literally contributing into a vault, and that's why we're calling it a vault. But it's the same thing, same terminology, same lingo.
Yeah. And people are asking about security. Can I answer a question that's in here?
Please.
Securitize, which is a fabulous thing. Securitize, we've known these guys since before since the early days, right? 16, 17. And Carlos has done a great job. What he just did is game changing and defining in this industry. But what he's doing is real world assets, tokenization of public securities. We are going to intersect with him, and there's an overlap. If you look at the Venn diagram, there's some overlap, not a huge, but we're definitely going to be doing a ton and as much as we can to support a first mover like Securitize. And what Carlos has done is pretty amazing. But what we're focused on, and we're going to focus not just with him but others, right? But this is a bellwether moment for tokenized securities, real world assets that are public market real world assets. We're focused with a data solution to transform private market assets. And there will be overlap for sure, but these are exactly the kind of markets that we want to partner with and build into an ecosystem that is seamless globally with DeFi. And Securitize, they're already a validator on Mantra right now, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So watch this space. I guess we can leave it at that for now.
Please. Yeah.
Cool. So I've seen we've answered a few of the questions. One of the questions that maybe would be helpful to answer together on this call would be, what is my role in Mantra and this new Inveniam thing that we're working on?
Well, so
I'll maybe let you put it in your words first, and then I'll try to explain it in mine. How's that sound?
For sure. So JP is going to be a key part, and we have an entire business called Inveniam Digital that he's going to run, and that includes a couple of assets that we have, and we are in the business of buying and partnering and plugging into a community, a bunch of tech, a bunch of tools, and definitively the team. Right, I'm a giant fan of JP. He's going to be one of my partners going forward for hopefully for a long time, next 20, 30 years. And but leading Inveniam Digital, which is all of the tokenized and crypto projects that Inveniam is involved in, which have been a number over the years, and it's going to continue to be. But this includes Mantra and Inveniam Chain, among others.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's perfect. I mean, for one, I would just want to say thank you, and I'm really honored for this opportunity and excited to work alongside you and learn from you. And it's going to be a really exciting adventure together, and can't wait to get this close done. I know it's it's a few days away, but I think at least between us and some of our key team members, it's effectively as good as done, and we're just we're already working together like as if it was basically right. So all that aside, this is an exciting opportunity. It's an exciting opportunity to continue with Mantra, but also have an expanded scope, as Pat was mentioning, and figure out ways to expand all the different things within this tokenized ecosystem that Inveniam has and that Mantra's built around perps and regulated on-chain markets, agentic usage of private market asset data. These things are an interesting convergence that we're seeing in the space. And frankly, I don't think anyone else is doing it. So there's a massive opportunity, in my opinion, and we're excited to capitalize on that together, basically. So
Yep.
Excited for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. JP, there's one or two other things that I wanted to share at the end of this, kind of some
Please.
updates. But let's answer questions and keep teeing those up, but make sure we leave 4 or 5 minutes at the end so I can talk about those.
Perfect. Let's do maybe 2 or 3 more quick ones. So Angie A is asking about VAR perp license. It's absolutely something that we are considering. 100%. Obviously, we have the spot license, and this is something that we're gonna, be in conversation with VAR about. They're also, I will say, big fans of Pat and Inveniam, and are excited about this new. Well, it's not a new relationship, frankly. It's a burgeoning relationship that's been going on for a bit over a year now. So maybe that quick small story that Katie's asking about. We met through our my investor and mutual friend Sharuk. Who introduced us at a time of need, and Pat came to our rescue, I would say.
Yeah, we know a bunch of the guys at Farouk, but Mahmoud, I would call a friend.
Yep.
And he called and said, "Do you know these guys? Can you take a close look at them?" And this is after the April crash, so we had known you guys. Some of the folks on my team had interfaced with you a couple of times, but I didn't know JP at all. And Mahmoud and Shane and everybody out there, Bilal, they're all superstars, super guys. And when Mahmoud asked me would I take a look, I did, and I have to tell you, the more we dug, the more we liked what we saw, and we disliked what had happened. And we said, let's go ahead and dig in and see if we can help out. But Sharuk is the matchmaker, and Sharuk has some investors similar to mine. Our second largest investor is one of Sharuk's big backers.
Yep. Awesome. I think that's super helpful. So one quick technical question. They're asking about are the Mantra tokens committed to the early access program returned? No, this is a swap. So if you contribute up until the time of closure, you can withdraw. But after the closure, they have been officially contributed. Yeah,
that's right. And I think there's some terms and conditions that are out there, right? We have to go through it, and I think everything will be fine. But those terms and conditions are there to ensure that we're regulatorily compliant, et cetera. So that what we do is we're going to double check all the work that Mantra has done to make sure everything's good. We're not laundering money for North Korea, or whatever it might be. And we're gonna go ahead and do things the right way according to Hoyle in the plain sight of regulators, to make sure that everything is good and right ahead of the TGE launch. But yes.
Awesome. Angie's asking about Inveniam utility. I will say there's a massive amount of really exciting use cases that will be, kind of dripped out as we, get closer to tokenomics release. So please just hold that thought. Keep asking that question. It's a good one. But there's some really exciting use cases and utility around Inveniam coming to light soon. And on that, we're getting to the top of the hour, and I do have a little bit of a hard stop because I got to move to my next meeting. But I do want to give you just a few more minutes of time, Pat, because you asked for it.
Yeah, for sure. And so I want to just say, the data piece, how we're extracting value from the data piece, and then pushing that on there is enormously important. I'm excited to say we're going to announce this in a press release, but this will be the first place that we're announcing it. We have a good friend. His name is Bob Muglia. Bob was one of the 4 presidents of Microsoft. He's just come in as an investor and an advisor to the company. He's the chairman of Jean Pauli's company. So we're excited. But when he was, and I think this is important, when he was the president of the 2nd largest division of Microsoft, right? So he had Azure and all the tools and servers in his business, and he was trying to build something similar to what Snowflake built. And Microsoft is a $2+ trillion company. Snowflake is a $60 billion company. Still, $60 billion is still huge, but 2.2 trillion is monstrous, right? And inside there, he couldn't build what he needed to build. So he had some of his guys, they went out and they launched and they solved a problem, and he went and he joined them in order to really build that second stool on the data stool, right? And he's now joined us on our team as we build the 3rd piece, and there'll be other evolutions, but I'm going to say the 3rd and final leg of this stool for the next little bit. So we're super excited to have Bob Muglia join us as an investor and an advisor. We want to share that with you because we have massive, globally known technology players who are coming in to help solve how machines interact with the most valuable data in the world, which is unstructured document-based data, which is the lingua franca of private markets. And the fact that we're building this great tech team over on the data side, then we've got a go-to-market solution on how we participate in the value creation, and then the market side with Mantra. It's going to be unbelievable what we build, and we're excited to be with you, and we welcome all of you to join us in this process. And this vault is for you guys, full stop. That's why we're doing it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on, and a very exciting announcement as well. A little tidbit for the community. We need to share with Bob all about crypto and get him to understand our world as well, because he's a newcomer, and he'll be excited to learn about all the exciting stuff that we're building. So everyone, thank you so much for coming and participating today. Sorry for running a little bit behind, but frankly speaking, the quality over quantity, and 45 minutes was packed full of good information. So hopefully everyone enjoyed. Thanks so much for your time, Pat, and I'll speak with you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
God bless. Thanks, JB.